You are 21 years old, and you are underneath a Sherman tank with a wrench in your hand and grease in your hair. The tank belongs to the 4th Armored Division, and it has thrown a track for the 3rd time this month. And the sergeant says if you do not fix it by 1700 hours you will be scrubbing latrines until the war ends without you. You tighten the last bolt and wipe your forehead with a rag that is more oil than cloth. The tank's name is Lucky Lady, painted in white script on the hull, and you have never believed in luck. You are a mechanic, not a soldier. You joined the army because they said you could fix engines instead of firing rifles, and for 18 months you have done exactly that, pulling transmissions and bleeding fuel lines and watching other men climb into the steel boxes that you repair. You do not envy them. The tank is a coffin on tracks. You have seen what comes back from the front. Armor pockmarked with anti-tank rounds, hatches welded shut by the heat of internal fires, the smell that lingers inside a vehicle where men have burned. You fix the track and you go back to your bunk and you sleep the sleep of the exhausted and the lucky. The morning of June 13th, 1944, you are eating breakfast when the alarm sounds. Not the practice alarm, the real one. Men run. Engines start. You grab your helmet and run toward the motor pool because that is your job, to keep the tanks running, but a hand grabs your shoulder and spins you around. Sergeant Croft. He is the commander of Lucky Lady, and his gunner is on the ground with a piece of shrapnel in his neck, blood pulsing between his fingers, medics already cutting away his uniform. Croft looks at you. He knows you have fired the main gun during maintenance tests, knows you understand the sights and the traverse and the ballistics because you are the one who calibrates them after every repair. He says, "You're my gunner now. Get in the turret." You open your mouth to say that you are a mechanic, that you have never killed anyone, that you do not belong in a tank. Croft is already walking away. A medic shoves the wounded gunner onto a stretcher. The man looks at you with eyes that say nothing because he is already in shock, already leaving, already gone. You climb into the turret. The seat is still warm. The controls are exactly where you placed them yesterday during the final check. The sight is clean. The breech is open. 3 rounds of high explosive and 2 rounds of armor-piercing sit in the ready rack. You load a shell into the breech, close it, feel the weight of the gun shift. Croft's voice comes through the intercom. "Driver, start it up." "Gunner, you see a target, you put a round in it. You don't wait for my order. You just shoot. You want to ask what if it's a friendly, what if it's a civilian, what if you are wrong." But the engine roars and the tank lurches forward and you are moving toward the front and there is no time for questions. The first day is chaos. You cross a bridge that should have been blown, pass through a village that should have been empty, stop at a crossroads where 3 American half-tracks are burning. You see your first German soldier. He is running across a field, 200 meters away, carrying a Panzerfaust. Croft sees him too. Croft does not say anything. Your hands move on their own. The gun traverses. The crosshairs find the man's chest. You fire. The high explosive shell hits the ground 3 meters to his left and the shockwave throws him into the air and he lands in a heap and does not move. You have missed him cleanly, the shrapnel probably killed him anyway, but you tell yourself that you missed because some part of you aimed wide on purpose. Croft says, "Next time, don't miss." You do not answer. The second day, you do not miss. A German machine gun nest in a stone barn. You put a high explosive round through the door. The barn collapses. The machine gun stops. You do not see the bodies. You tell yourself that is mercy. By the 3rd day, you have stopped telling yourself things. The crew accepts you. The driver is a kid named Rosen from Brooklyn, 19 years old, already wearing the expression of a man who has seen too much. The loader is Olafson, a giant from Minnesota who reads the Bible every night and can shove a 70-pound shell into the breech in 3 seconds. The bow gunner is Little Bear, Cherokee from Oklahoma, who sharpens his knife every morning and says almost nothing. Croft is from Texas, 32 years old, already balding, already smoking his 3rd pack of cigarettes before noon. They call you a mechanic because they do not know your name, or because they do not care, or because naming you would make your death harder to bear. You learn the rhythm of combat. The tank stops. You scan through the sight. You identify the target. You estimate the range. You fire. You watch the round hit or miss. You reload. You do it again. Between engagements, you climb out of the turret and check the tracks and the engine and the suspension because you are still a mechanic, because the tank will not run unless you keep it running, because Croft trusts you to fix what breaks. You fix a fuel line that has been punctured by shrapnel. You replace a road wheel that has been shot off. You weld a piece of armor plate over a hole in the hull. You do these things while German artillery falls around you, while snipers shoot at anything that moves, while the crew covers you with their machine guns. You do not think about dying. Thinking about dying takes too long. The first moral test comes on the 8th day. Your column is advancing through a wheat field when you see a white flag waving from a farmhouse. Croft orders you to hold fire. The farmhouse door opens. A German soldier walks out with his hands up. Then another. Then another. 7 of them, all young, all terrified, all unarmed. American infantry moves forward to take them prisoner. And then you see the 8th man, still inside the doorway, raising a rifle. You have 1 second. You fire the coaxial machine gun. The bullets stitch across the doorway, through the man, through the wall behind him. He falls. The other 7 drop to their knees. The infantrymen shout at you, curses and thanks and something you cannot understand. Croft says, "Good eye." You sit in the turret with your hands shaking and you do not know if you saved lives or ended one that could have been spared. The rifle was real. The man was aiming. You saw the barrel rise. But you will see his face for the rest of your life, and you will never know if he was about to shoot or about to surrender. July. The hedgerows. The Germans have turned every field into a fortress. You learn to listen for the sound of a Panzerfaust, the whoosh and crack that means death is coming. You learn to watch for wires strung between trees, for mines buried in the mud, for the glint of sunlight on a scope. You learn that Croft has a sixth sense, that he can smell an ambush before it happens, that he will order you to stop and wait for no reason you can explain. You learn to trust him because trusting him keeps you alive. You kill a Panther tank at 600 meters. Your first round bounces off its frontal armor. Your second round hits the track. The Panther spins, exposing its side. Your third round goes through the thinner armor and the tank brews up, the turret lifting off the hull, the crew screaming over the radio before the fire consumes them. You hear the screams for 3 seconds. Then silence. Olafsson pats your shoulder. Little Bear nods. Rosen says, "Nice shot." You do not feel nice. You feel empty, hollowed out, like someone has scooped out the part of you that used to care. August. The breakout. The tanks run free through open country. No hedgerows, no ambushes, just road after road after road. You kill trucks and half-tracks and horse-drawn wagons. You kill men on motorcycles and men on bicycles and men on foot. You stop counting because counting means remembering and remembering means the faces come back. Croft tells you that you are the best gunner he has ever had. You tell him that you were a mechanic 2 months ago. He says, "Not anymore." September. The names blur. Nancy. Luneville. Ericourt. You are in a tank battle that lasts for 4 days, 100 American tanks against 300 German tanks. And by the end you have fired every shell in the tank and borrowed shells from 3 other tanks, and your ears are bleeding and your hands are blistered, and you have killed 17 German tanks. 17. You know the number because Olafsson keeps count, scratching marks into the turret wall with a piece of chalk. 17 tanks. You do not know how many men. You do not want to know. October. The mud. The rain. The cold. Rosen is the first to break. It happens after a night of shelling that never stops. After the tank has been hit twice and you are all bleeding from your noses and your ears. Rosen opens his hatch and climbs out and starts walking toward the German lines with his hands up. Croft screams at him. Olafsson grabs his leg. Little Bear puts a pistol to his head. Rosen does not stop. Croft gives the order to move. You drive away and leave him in the mud. You never see him again. A replacement comes. A kid named Giordano from Philadelphia, who drives like a demon and talks like a man who has already accepted his death. November. The Vosges Mountains. The roads are ice. The cliffs are sheer. One wrong turn and the tank tumbles 500 meters into a valley full of Germans. You engage a Tiger at 300 meters point-blank range, so close you can see the faces of the crew through their vision ports. You fire. The round penetrates. The Tiger burns. The crew climbs out. For men running, hands in the air. You do not shoot them because they are running away and because you have already killed enough men today. Croft says that was a mistake. You say maybe. He does not argue. December 16, 1944. The Ardennes. The Bulge. You wake to the sound of engines and you do not know whose engines, German or American, friend or foe. Croft says move. Giordano starts the tank. You drive through a village called Bastogne and you do not stop because stopping means dying. The Germans are everywhere. They have tanks that are bigger than yours, guns that are longer than yours, crews that have been fighting for years. You fire until the barrel glows red. You fire until the ready rack is empty and Olafsson is pulling shells from the floor racks, from the bustle, from any space that still holds ammunition. You fire until Little Bear runs out of machine gun ammo and starts throwing grenades out his hatch. You survive. You do not know how. Luck. The mechanic's luck, the one you never believed in. Christmas Day. You are out of fuel, out of food, out of ammunition, sitting in a frozen forest with a dead tank and 3 other dead tanks around you and the sound of German voices somewhere in the trees. Croft pulls his pistol. Olafsson opens his Bible. Little Bear draws his knife. Giordano falls asleep in the driver's seat, exhausted beyond fear. You sit in the turret with one last round in the breech, a high explosive shell that you are saving for the right moment, for the moment when the Germans find you and you can take at least one of them with you. The voices come closer. You aim the gun at the sound. Your hand rests on the firing lever. And then the voices fade. They turn. They go the other way. You do not know why. You do not care why. You lower your head to the gun and you cry, just for a minute, just until the tears freeze on your cheeks. January 1945. The relief. Fuel arrives. Ammo arrives. You drive south and west and north again, chasing the Germans, killing the Germans, becoming something that is no longer human. You cross into Germany. The villages are empty. The roads are lined with refugees and soldiers and the bodies of soldiers. You see a column of prisoners, Americans and British, walking east with their hands on their heads. You see a column of Germans, old men and boys, walking west with their hands in the air. You see a farmhouse with a white flag and you see the sniper in the window and you put a round through the wall and the sniper does not fire again. April. You see the camp. You do not know what it is at first, just a fence and some buildings and some people who look like skeletons. Then you know. You cannot look away. You cannot stop looking. Croft says driver keep moving. Giordano drives. You leave the camp behind but you never leave the camp behind. That night, Olafsson reads from the Bible about mercy and you want to tell him that mercy does not exist, that you have killed too many men to believe in mercy, that the world is made of steel and fire and the screams of dying tank crews. You say nothing. You clean your guns. You sleep. You dream of your mother's kitchen. May 8, 1945. The war in Europe is over. You are in a town called Pilsen, in a country called Czechoslovakia, in a tank that has been hit 23 times and repaired 26 times and should have killed you 100 times. Croft opens a bottle of whiskey he has been saving since Normandy. Olafsson reads a passage about peace. Little Bear puts away his knife. Giordano sits in the driver's seat with his hands on the controls and stares at nothing. You climb out of the turret and stand on the hull and look at the sky and the sky is blue and the sun is warm and there are no planes, no shells, no muzzle flashes, nothing trying to kill you. You are alive. You do not know what to do with that. Croft hands you the bottle. You drink. The whiskey burns. He says, "You going home, mechanic?" You say, "I don't know." He says, "You earned it." You look at your hands. They are calloused and scarred and stained with grease and gunpowder and things you cannot wash off. You think about the man who fixed tanks in England, who believed that staying out of the turret would keep him safe, who thought he understood what war was. That man is dead. You killed him the first time you fired the gun. Or the second. Or the third. You do not remember which. You only remember that you stopped missing and then you stopped counting, and then you stopped being anything except the gunner. The truck comes to take you to the port. You climb out of Lucky Lady for the last time. You touch the hull, the turret, the barrel. You think about the chalk marks inside, the 17 tanks and the dozens of trucks and the hundreds of men you will never forget. You walk away. You do not look back because looking back means staying, and staying means the war never ends. But the war never ends. Not really. You will carry it with you, in your hands and your head and the space behind your eyes where the faces live. You will wake up in your mother's house in Iowa and hear engines and reach for a gun that is not there. You will see a white flag in a shop window and flinch. You will smell diesel and feel your heart race. You will be 24 years old and home and lost. You will sit at the kitchen table and your mother will ask what is wrong and you will say nothing because there are no words for what you have done, for what you have become, for the mechanic who climbed into a turret and never climbed back out. The war is over. The tank is still inside you. The crosshairs are still searching. And you do not know if they will ever stop.